what's going on, Gav? I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Wolf Financial. I'm honored to have you as our featured guest for the first of hopefully many videos. I'm going to be doing video interviews going forward, and I figured you'd probably be one of the best people to reach out to engage with me on the first one. Before we get started talking about Wolf Financial, because I really want to focus on your brand, give the viewers a bit more about yourself first, your origin story, anything we should know about your upbringing, what piqued your interest in finance and investing, and ultimately what made you, what sparked the fire in you to start Wolf Financial.
For sure. And it's definitely a bit of a story, so I'll try to condense it down as best as I can. I do have a pretty traditional finance background when it comes to previous work experiences, to college, everything along those lines. I really got into the finance area around when I was 10 years old, actually back in 2008. And that was because of the financial crisis, which hit many people and severely affected my family in turn. And so, my whole life kind of changed in 2008. My family had bought a bunch of real estate the year before, and that did not turn out too well as an investment. And that ended up affecting us, right? What schools we could go to, I had to switch schools, what we could eat, what we could afford, all that type of stuff. And so it definitely just changed a lot of life. And I think I went through this mindset of realizing, and this is something that's hammered home at a lot of institutions, it's really not about how much money you make, because my dad was making plenty of money. It's about how much you keep, right? And how you turn that money into more money over time. And so when I went to school, I went for finance, took a little bit of, computer science here and there, data analytics, but ultimately I was finance focused. I was able to work a couple of jobs, including private wealth management at Goldman Sachs and private equity at Versa Capital Management. And I got super lucky with the timing of the pandemic and everything coming. And with that, I was able to get into the startup world. And kind of long story short, I initially entered the startup world and started building Wolf Financial as an app that would help people learn about finance and do research that evolved into a social finance app, similar to like a Stocktits or a Republic, and ultimately ended up ditching the entire app side and just taking the brand that I had been building and going full time with that brand, really when I discovered the power of Twitter Spaces. And ultimately, that's what led me to where I am here today, having hosted Spaces every single week for over 3 years.
Right. And you guys are hosting Spaces almost daily from what I've seen. Yeah. You cover a wide breadth of different topics. Can you dive a bit more into the kind of content you produce on Twitter as it pertains to the broadcasts that you put out, but also some of the other tweets, other products, and also the newsletter that you guys produce? Would love to know about the entire suite of services the Wolf Financial brand offers.
So this started with Wolf Financial being the sole channel. For a long time, Wolf Financial was the only channel. And I was hosting for a while, stock specific content. And then a couple of years ago, started leaning more into doing crypto specific content as well. And now I cover a wide range of topics, right? I'll talk stocks, I'll talk crypto. I have a space every single week where we just talk about what's going on with Twitter or X itself. And I'll do all ranges of stocks. We'll do everything from large cap, tech, small cap, specific industries, cannabis stocks, whatever it is. To be honest, really whatever there's demand for, I do try my best to cater to. There's only so many hours in a day, and people can look. I'm hosting 30, 40 hours a week. I really am doing my best to hit all those areas. We have expanded out over the last year, and now we have, in addition to Wolf Financial, Wolf Web3, Wolf Sports, and Wolf News. Similar models, right? Just taking what we had established with Wolf Financial and transferring it over, but diving deep into those genres. The riches is in the niches, is what they say. And so we're trying to lean more into that. Wolf Web3, full-time hosting pretty much every day as well. Web3 Spaces, Wolf Sports, 3 times a week right now, soon to be 4 times a week, hosting sports content, and so on and so forth. Wolf News is a little bit more whenever there's news, right? And so we've expanded out across there, and we work with a number of different clients that are interested in hitting audiences that might be interested in those things. So it could be someone like today did a space for Seeking Alpha. Seeking Alpha is maybe the largest online community of investors in the world. They have millions and millions of users. They've been around for decades at this point. I've had the chance to speak with their founder. We've worked with publicly traded companies, publicly traded ETFs, some very reputable ones in that area like Granite Shares and SoFi. And then on the Web3 side, some great names there too, right? Hedera. We're doing spaces together with George from Cryptos RS and talking about different things like Karate Combat, which is a media partner that we're partnering with, and different pieces like those. And then outside of it, there's of course posts that go on the timeline, threads. I wrote a thread today about a AI app that I've been extensively using to help find long-term picks, and God bless them. Their number one pick that they've been hammering has been Broadcom, which is ticker AVGO, which Nancy Pelosi bought a bunch of today, so it's probably destined to go to the moon. So yes, so shout out to them for having hammered that as their top pick all year, pretty much. And then aside from that, we've got the newsletter, about 13 to 14,000 people reading the newsletter on any given day. That's going out 3 times a week, soon to be 4 times a week again. We've got a Sunday edition that's going to be coming. And there's probably so much other stuff, to be honest. We've become really a full house, I would say, of marketing and content and media offerings. And in addition to that, we've also more expanded into an agency capacity where we're not just managing our own assets. We also work with about 25 other influencers, and we help them to monetize, because you'd be amazed. There are people that have tens of thousands of people tuning in a day to them and getting millions of impressions, and they seriously love what they're doing, and they have no idea how to make money off of it. So they're just basically scraping by, barely paying their rent.
How big is the team? You said you've expanded a lot recently.
Yes. The team right now is 8 people. However, we are probably going to hire 3 more, I think, in the near future. So right now, we've just been expanding as needed, to be quite honest. I'm very much a fan of, I don't like to just have bloat within the company, and I don't like to just bring on people for the sake of bringing on people. I really like to find people, work them in a smaller capacity at the start, see how hungry they are, see how interested they really are, and how powerful they can be with a small amount of time, and work that way up, right? And see if they can work in a bigger capacity, a bigger role. And then over the course of a few months, if they can prove themselves there, they can work to something full time. And eventually, if we need another person, we'll then insert that person. But I really like to take people in slowly and then load them up, see where we can get to. And then, okay, we've reached the limit. Let's go to that next person. For me, I always, when I was working in past positions, I always felt like, they didn't utilize me enough, as much as I would have wanted them to utilize me. And so I try for my team to not necessarily make things easy. I try to load them up and put more and more. And the ones that loaded me up the most are, my best experiences, and the ones that I took the most away from.
So I want to take a step back. You said something that piqued my interest. You said that you got lucky during the pandemic, and you were working in private equity before. What was that experience like, working in private equity compared to building something like Wolf Financial? Because I have a good friend who also worked in private equity, and I remember it being an extremely high stress environment, no work-life balance, very, very cutthroat. And he's also now building a software company. He's an entrepreneur as well, like you. So 2-part question. 1, what was that experience like? Why did you get lucky during the pandemic? You never really explained that. And was that luck what allowed you to bootstrap and turn Wolf Financial into what it is today?
Yeah. So private equity, I honestly wouldn't say it was, the craziest 80-hour work weeks, nothing compared to what I work now. Now I work 80 to 100 hours a week pretty easily. I'll pull 13, 14-hour days without thinking about it. Back then, that certainly wasn't what it was. I was working, max 9 hours a day, I would say, at a time, and maybe a little bit, if there was a big deal or something along those lines that we were focusing on. But for me, private equity got very interesting right when the pandemic hit, because the 2 companies that I was staffed on. So for those who are just not familiar with the private equity model, the way that our firm was doing it was essentially very similar to flipping houses, right? You go in, you find something where, hey, it's got promise, right? But there's a foundation, but there's so much rotten pieces that we have to pull out of here, replace, and then we can resell this. That's what we did. We targeted distressed assets, distressed companies. We'd oftentimes buy the company, remove the C-suite executives, the board, whatever else needed to be rerouted, and then fill them with people that we trusted, rebuild the company over the course of, it could be 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, and then resell that company, right? That's kind of the goal. We're a holding company that is diving in there with our tools. The 2 companies, and we had 11 companies at the time in 2020. The 2 companies that I was staffed on mainly, one of them was a restaurant chain that was based out of California, about 53 locations. And the other was a smaller airline that flies between mostly Florida and Caribbean islands. You can imagine both of those businesses did horrible with the onset of COVID. California shut down every single one of our locations, and we were not drive-through or anything like that, so we didn't have that availability. And then the airlines, of course, got shut down by Trump with a lot of the external movement, with people even wanting to go on planes, with planes only being able to sell half the tickets because they had to have a seat in between people, right? There were so many problems that started arising, and our companies rapidly started losing money. I went on a treasure hunt to try to find PPE loans because that's the only thing that was keeping stuff alive at this time. I sat there for a few weeks doing this and then realized that I had no idea how long this pandemic could go. And there's a very likely chance that I could be sitting there 8 months later still trying to get PPE loans from the government. And that is a nightmare of a job. And that's not anything that I'm interested in doing. And so for me, it was becoming time to exit. And when I said, why did I get lucky? Perfect timing, pretty much right as I was basically done there. I got a call from a couple of friends from back in college, and they hit me up saying, hey, we want to get into the startup world. One of my friends, this is the funniest part of this, I don't know if you remember, but also during this time was the GameStop saga, where GameStop had just initially popped. It had gone from like $3 to like 70 something, right?
Yeah.
So one of my friends had just made a bunch of money off of GameStop and basically took that money, we joined forces, and we bootstrapped the initial days of Wolf Financial. And so it was actually kind of funded by that, which was funny enough. That company, again, had a different mantra. We were working on an app. We were working on some other pieces. We ended up actually splitting into two companies later on. I took over fully with the Wolf Financial as a media brand. They split out as building an API and a software for insurance for investors. And so kind of two different pieces. But I think the luck was just I had put myself in the right place really throughout college by making great connections. Those connections had been inspired by their time working with me or doing things together, had thought of me to call me and say, hey, let's do something together. It was perfect timing where I just couldn't see myself trying to get PPE loans for much longer, to be quite honest. And I was able to transition right into that. Now, I wasn't getting paid. We were bootstrapping the company. I basically was unpaid for about 17 months. And just grinded every single day, every single night, full time on this until we got it to the point where I was able to start making some cash. And then Spaces really kicked in. You know, I was hosting Spaces for a while of that, but I was never monetizing them. I didn't monetize any Spaces until I had over 50,000 followers. And I started hosting Spaces when I had 500 followers. So there was definitely a gap of time.
You guys are an absolute juggernaut on Spaces. One of the few spaces I see with purely organic audiences, organic listeners. And you're right, you guys monetize quite often. The proof is in the pudding. What are your future plans for scaling, right? Where do you see yourselves in, let's say, 3 to 5 years from now? Do you want to expand to other platforms like YouTube? I would love to hear Gav's vision of Wolf Financial down the line.
I think it's twofold. One, it's establishing a system because there's so much that goes into Spaces, the host, the topic, the speakers, the timing, the promotion, right? And being able to systemize that is really key. And for years, I just kind of did it off the top of my head. But now that we're trying to replicate that model with other channels, we're having to systemize it. And so I think one of the steps is just taking that system and purely implementing it, right? Getting Wolf Web 3 to as big as Wolf Financial is now, building Wolf Sports into something like people don't listen to sports on Spaces. They really don't. It's just not something people have normalized. Even ESPN with 45 million followers gets like 300 listeners. So us, of course, not ESPN, we're not going to, pull any massive crowds, but nobody also, necessarily knew about Spaces in the beginning for finance, right? Like we have to build up that crowd and that audience. So I think it's continuing to establish the other branches, and there's more branches to come, right? Wolf Fitness or lifestyle, right? Different areas like that. Ultimately, just continuing to branch out, bring in the right people, build the system, implement it. And yes, I think expanding to other platforms as well, right? So right now, Wolf Web 3 is only on Twitter, although Wolf Financial is on every platform, right? We've got a LinkedIn account and Instagram and Threads and YouTube and all these platforms. So it's establishing us and then branching out all the other brands. And really, that's a manpower thing, right? Having somebody that can be in charge of that and branching it out and making it go to other areas. And then a monetization thing, having it make sense to actually be doing it. You have to understand the systems. You can't just go into social media and just post willy-nilly. You have to have a plan. And then I think the other part is kind of, eventually phasing myself out from financial account so that I can, more strategy and things like that. Right now I'm dedicating 30, 40 hours a week to being live on the account, another, let's say 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week to scheduling, right? Communicating with people in advance, all that stuff. Spaces are a huge part of my life right now. And so I think it's like the twofold pieces, build a system, get the right people in place, and then kind of replace my role as well so that I can go on and do those other things.
Okay, so what about YouTube? I know that I've asked you this before, but
Yeah.
would you want to go full steam? Because in my opinion, and correct me if you disagree, or rather disagree with me if you do, but in my opinion, YouTube is probably the only S tier social media platform. It's a juggernaut, and if you can make it on YouTube, then you can print, right? You can build an entire empire on that platform. What are your thoughts on expanding Wolf Financial to YouTube, or do you think that X Twitter is an underdog and it's going to catch up one day?
YouTube's definitely an amazing platform. It's probably the most difficult to grow on out there, and it takes a lot of time and dedication. For me, I just have been unable to dedicate enough time to keep up with it. Unfortunately, I wish that I could have done better with it. It's been a little while since I've posted regular content to it. I used to make videos on a weekly basis. I've got an editing team, and I've got, people to be here. So there's really no excuses there, just the time and effort to put into it. And also ultimately it's hard to get views on YouTube, like the quality is scaled up, and it's hard in general on social media with the type of content that we're providing. So many social medias now, the type of content that they push is content that creates strife, right? Is how I would describe it, right? Content that creates conflict does really well because it builds engagement. And so you'll see, a lot of the timeline on all platforms now pushing race baiting and politics and disturbing content, right? And that's just not what I create. It just doesn't at all fit with the ethos of my brand. So we're kind of fighting a fight from behind to say like, hey, like, how about, you put down the entertaining video and like learn something for once. And maybe it can also be entertaining as well. So YouTube, honestly, I'm certain will be in our plans in the future. We still do upload, I think, a video a week right now to YouTube. I have a team that does make a video, like a crypto video each week, but unless you're, actively promoting it and pushing it out on other socials, or you have a network of other YouTubers who can come in and engage with you, it's really hard to get, anything consistent going there. I think right now, it's so hit or miss as well with some of our videos. It's never like consistent is what it seems. We'll have a video go for, 1,000 views and the next video go for 30, right? It's just hard to tell like what is happening here within this. So like we did an interview with, Yatsu, the chairman of Animoca, and that went for 1.2 thousand views. We did a video on Coinbase's new smart wallet that went for 3.2 thousand, but the surrounding views around those videos have like 120, 26, 37, 60, right? It's like, what is happening here with the way that this is going? So it's hard to exactly tell. I think YouTube does want, longer content. They want more engaging content. They want interesting ones. And I want to give them all of that. It's just a little bit harder to create than like a tweet, right? I could write up a, a tweet right now in like, a minute and put that out and, know that that's going to get 100, 200 likes and 10,000 views. But it, would take me way longer than that to do something for YouTube. So yes, I want to do YouTube. It's in the plans.
Yeah. Gav, when you hear the term creator economy, what do you think of? What is the creator economy to you? And then how do you think the creator economy evolves in the next 5 years?
I think it's the direction that things are going overall because people just simply buy or are more likely to buy, in my opinion, from someone that they trust versus just a general ad, right? Or something like that. So the creator economy, and you see this like there's a blend that happens even. I'll give an example, but for me, the creator economy is people that have large audiences or influence, utilizing that in order to team up with a company and sell a product or a service to that audience. And I think that that's what the creator economy is and what people are working through. I think it's continued to evolve. So like a good example is in the podcasting world. And I'll use like Bill Simmons, who really pioneered a lot of sports podcasting as an example. They would do podcasts and they would get massive viewership on the podcast. And for a long time, they would then cut in ads, right? So it's like, hey, you've listened for 30 minutes. Here's an ad from QQQ or whatever it is, or whoever someone, is given something like that, giving you an ad of some type or sort. Now, over time, what they started doing is instead of having the company provide an ad with, a stock person voice, like not a stock, like a stock market, but like a stock photo type voice. You know what I'm saying? Like a very like, oh, hey, have you heard our ad? They started just using their own team to record the ads, right? So now it's like, oh, I'm listening to the podcast. And now the person who's running this podcast is sharing their thoughts with me, right? That kind of thing. And it started like hearing it from them. And so that's why it's so powerful in spaces. Like I could like cut the space and like insert classic radio ad or insert, you know, someone else's thing on my page. But when I write it and it comes from my voice and I'm talking about it and I'm passionate about it, that's the creator economy. That's where people relate to it. So there's products like this in my own life, right? Even this desk right here. So I've got, you know, a stand right here. This stand, why do I use it? Alex Finn posted, like, I use a stand and it's great and I'm a really big fan. I was like, oh, send me the link. He sends me the link, right? You know, when it comes to, my morning routine, I use AG1. Started using AG1 because I saw people that I follow posting about it and they posted like 6 times. Like, all right, I got to give this a try. Now I've been on it for 9 months, almost $1,000 paid towards AG1, right? So different pieces like that, and just builds. And I remember the person that like recommended it or said something like that. And I hope that my audience gets that from me too. Like I did like I said, a space for Seeking Alpha today. I love Seeking Alpha. It's like, there's not a ton of products that I would personally pay for. And, you know, just like I do, you know, people that are in a position often do get given a lot of stuff for free, or you can ask for it for an exchange for something. I would pay for Seeking Alpha. It's worth paying for, in my opinion. Have paid for it in the past. Now I'm obviously working with them on a deal. They do include it within it. Shout out to them. But like, that's the type of product where I go, I would actually pay for this. I think it's super valuable. And my audience hears me talking about it and saying that, like, I hope that they go and try it out because I think it's worth their money. And I hope that when they make good decisions off it, they think back and they're like, that guy got me into this, right? Like, that's the type of creator economy that I want to see.
So shout out to Alex Finn, because I'm using a Sony camera that he posted on his Twitter feed. And I share the same sentiment as you. You see someone putting out nice content. They seem like a cool person online. Like, all right, he seems like he knows what he's doing. I'm going to go buy the Sony camera because when he makes videos, it looks good.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
No, you hit it on the head. Like, he makes videos, it looks good. He does good research, right? What does he use? He sounds good. What's his mic, right? Like all that type of stuff. You just want to hear it from them, even though like there could be something out there that's better quality, but you build an affinity for it.
So I think that to be in your position is a double-edged sword. You obviously want to build trust within your community, and it takes years to do that. But it only takes a day or two to break that trust forever. Yeah. How do you vet the products that you push to your audience? So like with something with like a camera or a stand, right? It's pretty easy to say this camera is good. It's Sony. But how are you careful about some of it? Because I'm sure you've gotten offered a lot of money in the past to offer something that, or to market something that isn't exactly, it's on the line. It's not unethical, but you're kind of like, how do you vet those products? And also, how do you vet projects, whether it's stocks or crypto, that want to promote on your platform?
So I built a little bit of our own internal system when it comes to like the first layer of vetting, just, you know, a list of questions that I'm usually sending out, digging into team, background, revenue. I kind of take like the approach like I do with publicly traded companies, right? I've been analyzing publicly traded companies for a long time. And a lot of the things that I'm looking for there do apply to everyday companies, where I want to understand like team governance and backgrounds, and are they qualified for this? Track record. Okay, recently, what do their socials look like? What are they posting? Is it easy to understand their product? All that type of stuff. I also love relying on my network. You know, the beauty to the position that we're in is like we have big networks. And so they come to me, they're like, do you want to work with this company? Who else have you worked with? I go to those people. Oh yeah, I did a full due diligence background check into them. I spoke with the team. Well, that's great to hear, right? Tell me all the info. And now I can like piece that together as well from other people. I think that those are like, that's like the two main pieces of the pie, right? Have your own process for due diligence, and then have a great network of people that you can also rely on to accentuate it. And then I think on top of that, you know, you have to like follow a little bit of your own intuition and like understand like what your brand's going to be associated with, who you want to be, understanding like the bigger picture. So like, I'll give an example. I work with publicly traded companies, so you have to be super careful in that area, right? Because there's a lot of red tape and guidelines, and there's a lot of companies. It's typically like the fine line, right? The companies that are the most in need and want your services are usually not the greatest companies in the world, right? The greatest companies in the world, like Apple and stuff, like Tesla, they don't have to go spend marketing with us, right? Everybody already knows about them. It's companies that need help. So you have to understand that going into it. But within that, you have to understand like the back end of the operation, right? Like when someone brings me a company and I look at the company and I go, no, like this is a piece of crap. Like I would destroy, like, I'm not going to take your money. I would destroy my brand talking to people about this, right? Versus, oh, your company is in a bad situation, but there's good stuff here, right? There's stuff that I can
Mhm.
talk about it and we can build a thesis out of and we can show to people. There's like a very big difference between those two things. And sometimes you just have to really do your research. Like I had a company recently that was trying to bring me deals. I started researching the company. I found out that one of the founders had been subpoenaed recently. I then went online, did a deep dive into them, looked into why they were subpoenaed, found two of their connections that they were connected with. One of them was super shady, bunch of SEC stuff on them, and I just cut off that relationship, right? And not only that, I tried to look out for other people. I went to other creators that were working with them, and I was like, hey guys, like this is wrong, right? I'm going to outline for you exactly what you're doing and why you don't want to be doing it, because you're taking, and sometimes it's like a decent amount of money that people are taking, right? Like I don't want to cost people money, like $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000 a month. But sometimes I just have to tell them, like, you have to see the long-term picture here and understand, like, you're building your brand up over years and you could destroy it in a day.
You've built a successful brand, and a company of your caliber doesn't come without its onslaught of challenges in the early days, and even in a time like now where you're still where you're doing very well, but you're still building and you still have a lot of future hopes and aspirations. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were first starting, when you broke off from your friends, right? They did their API thing, you took it the Wolf Financial route. So what were some early challenges? How'd you guys overcome those? And then what are some current challenges you're facing today, and what are your plans on overcoming those?
Yeah, so early challenges, I fancy myself to be a great leader and motivator and people person, but I'm not the best systems person. And so I'm really good at just like going and doing something and getting it done, but then figuring out how to replicate that and turn that into a system can be really difficult, right? And figuring out how to properly like document everything. And there's so many campaigns in the beginning where like I wish I'd better tracked numbers, link clicks, data, info, made use cases, right? Like made things look pretty, all that type stuff. And since then, I've hired people that have thankfully come on and done that stuff for us, right? And so we're moving in the right direction. But for me, I think a lot of my work was great work getting done, but not at all contributing to the future of the company, right? It was in the moment type work, like, hey, we got it done, but I wasn't thinking like, okay, how can I take this great work and now re-replicate it, systemize it, all those types of pieces. So I think part of it is like just learning what you're good at and what you're not good at, you know, what interests you and that type of stuff. That was definitely a big piece in the beginning. I think as, you know, we've continued to grow, it's just, you know, the stretch, like having so many hours in the day. I often just wish like, why can't I have like another 5 hours today? Like, I just wish I had more time. I need to do like 2 more business calls. I need to go do this, right? There's always stuff on my calendar, always stuff. Like I show people my calendar and they don't believe it when they see it. It is, I've never seen anyone have a more busy calendar. I have like 15 to 20 items on every single day. Every single 30-minute to hour slot is booked out usually for the entire week. I book 2 to 3 weeks in advance now as well. So it's just like, where's the hours in the day? What was the second part of the question?
So the second part in the question was current challenges that you're facing, right? You just talked about challenges that you overcame in the past.
Yeah.
What are the ones you're facing now, and how are you planning on tackling those?
We have some of those good problems now, right? Where you're like, well, I've got like almost too much deal flow and I need to like find places to satiate it with, right? Like I need places to put this. I got people that I got, you know, clients that want to spend with us. That's like the best problems that you can run into. It takes a while to get there, but good problems to have. Also, you know, hey, I need more people that I can trust and that will really be go-getters. I think everybody on my team, I can very genuinely say that everybody that works for me does not work for me for the money. I think money is a bonus and I get it. People need to make money, but people work for me because they really want to work for Wolf and they love it and they enjoy the job and they want to scale with us. Not a single person on payroll is here just because they want the money. And it's hard to find people like that, really hard. I'm consistently searching and looking to find people like that and bring them into the mix so we can continue to expand with them. Because if you can find one of those people and scale up together with them, it's super beneficial for both of you. So I'd say that that's a couple of the issues that we're focused on right now. And then I think, you know, running a social media business, you're just always going to have the depths of dealing with the ins and outs of social media. People are kind of ridiculous on there. There's a lot of hate, right? Especially like I'm Jewish. So like been catching the anti-Semitic flack lately. So there's just like stuff like that when you're putting yourself out into the open and being super social, you're just always going to deal with issues like that, especially as you grow. And now we've got, you know, 500,000 followers across our accounts. It's just going to continue to compound.
I didn't know if you played online games growing up, but I feel like my time playing different MMORPGs and online games conditioned me for the Twitter trolls. I'm like these guys are nothing compared to the trolls you meet in World of Warcraft, for example.
Yeah, I remember, but it's just a little bit different, I think, nowadays because of what people are attacking you for and how much of your info is out online versus, what people can get from a gamer tag, right? Like
True.
people are like psychopaths, but like they, people in COD are like, they're mostly having fun. People on the internet here are like true psychopaths.
Gav, 3 pieces of advice you would give rising entrepreneurs that specifically want to build a brand in the creator economy?
Sure. I would say, first off, the number one thing off the bat is understanding that it is going to take a while. Again, 17 months initially, I was doing this, not making any money, grinding 10 to 12 hours a day, just slaving way over these spaces. I mean, just sitting here trying to be like, I'm just going to outdo everyone else, host as many as I can. Outreach. I mean, we had times where we were sending out like 1,000 DMs a week, trying to find new speakers, just absolutely pouring time and effort in. Number 2, as you grow and as you hire, just understanding that like nobody's ever going to, and people might get close, but nobody's ever going to care as much as you care. So if you start like caring less and slowing down, your entire operation is just going to slow down right with you. Like everybody's just you're the leader, right? As much as you put into it, they're going to put in probably just slightly less. So if you start decreasing, they're going to decrease. And so I've always, always, always led with the mantra that I expect myself to do much, much more than anybody that's working for me at the end of the day. And then the third thing is your network truly is your net worth, even more so in the creator economy. Who you know makes a huge difference. One connection, I've had, single connections. I think one single connection last year that was made for me ended up leading to like 10% of my revenue for the year. Just one connection that I was introduced to. And so you just never know, right? And so you always have to be networking, constantly doing outreach, getting on calls with people, building relationships. I think that I was honestly even better at that in my early days. Like now there's so much stuff going on and so busy. I have more available time, especially when you do have that available time. Just fill up those slots, reach out to people, see who will get on, see who will do a podcast with you. Honestly, I did a podcast and that was my best way that I was able to like make friends with people and get to know them. I did 100 episodes. I ended up stopping it there. I was too busy with spaces and stuff like that. But, all those 100 people led to a lot of great connections.
Yeah, I think one of the things I told you when we were on our call before Consensus was that, and you had been to conferences before, but we wouldn't be where we are today. Moby Media wouldn't be what it is today if we had not gone to those conferences, shaken those hands, put a face with the name. I think that a lot of the interactions you have in crypto, especially on crypto Twitter or on Telegram, are missing that human component because everyone's a PFP and all the comms are done in text. But when you go to these conferences and you meet people for the first time, it's almost like it humanizes the individual, and those connections get a lot stronger, and those connections have led to opportunities that I wouldn't even imagine. So I couldn't agree with you more there.
Yeah, for sure. Like, Brian Feroldi is an example who's a friend of mine now and has a great audience across all social medias and really just next level finance investor. This guy was like, honestly, the guy that I was trying to model content off of. I was trying forever to like get him onto a space, do this, do that. I really just wasn't getting much. Never really had that contact. I went to a conference. He was a speaker at the conference. Watched him speak. He sat down, went right over to him, said, "Hey, I really loved X, X, and X that you were talking about. This is who I am. This is what I do. I think what you just spoke about would be a perfect fit for a space. Let me just show you. Here's what I do." I went back over, sat on my seat after 5 minutes of talking with him, and I looked down at my phone and he had followed me. And this guy had like 400,000 followers at the time. I had a very small audience. And, that led to a relationship where we've done multiple spaces and business together, right? And stuff like that. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences. And I thought it was so cool to see you guys do. You guys crushed it. You guys did so well at Consensus despite being there. And you have a big team. I was surprised to see how many people working for Wolf Financial. Look, Gav, we have a little bit of time left. And I wanted to pivot to something I see you post about quite often. And it's the escape of this 9-to-5 working until you're 60 something rat race.
Yeah.
How it's no way to live. And this resonates with me very deeply. It's why I began my journey. But I sometimes wonder, Is this possible for most people, or do you have to be exceptional to break free? Because it was one of those things where I would always scratch my head at people older than me telling me that this is life and this is the way it is and this is how it's always been, and really you have to work until you're old, and hopefully you have the energy to go and do some of the things that you wanted to do when you were younger. So what sparked this feeling inside of you? Because I do see you post about it a lot. And do you think it's possible for most people?
We definitely have to want it. That's for sure. That's step one, right? If you don't, if you want to work for someone else, or you have a company that you've always idolized, like I think the message, to be quite honest, is that you shouldn't be working in positions that you don't want to do, right? That's what it comes down to. And I think there's plenty of people that really enjoy working for the companies that they work for, whether they're small companies, big companies. That's great. I am just trying to preach the message of, if you don't enjoy that, there is alternatives, right? Like, you can go and build your own thing. Many people are doing it, right? And I think that if people don't see that message consistently, they're just not going to believe it's possible. They're just going to look at it and say, all right, my dad and my mom worked for companies their whole lives. Maybe they switched around a few times, got a few raises. I want to do that, right? I'm working in tech sales. I'm going to work my way up the ladder over time. I'll make VP. I'll do this, right? Like, if that's all that you know, that's one thing. But I'm showing you that there is another way. Now, if it's not what you want, that is totally fine. My message really just is, whatever you're doing for work, you should enjoy. You should want to go do it that day. I've worked other jobs that I did not enjoy at all. I worked an accounting job for 6 months. I learned that I don't like to do accounting, right? Like, sometimes you do jobs and you learn what you don't like to do. And that's okay, right? Like, I just basically want to push people. And I do think that a lot of people would enjoy working for themselves and having their own company. But I don't think it's for everyone. I'm putting the message out there just so people know that it exists and that they can do it if they want to.
Gov, I'm a Bitcoin guy, and I don't know too much about stocks. My approach to stocks was always, if I see it being used, it's probably not a bad idea to buy it. So my phone's an iPhone, and I'm using Google every day, and Amazon delivers everything to my door in a matter of a day or two. So it would make most sense. All the computers in all these buildings are Microsoft. So this is what I'm going to put my money in. But if I was to say, Gob, I have $100,000 and I want a high risk portfolio, not asking financial advice, just curious to know what your educational thesis is. How would you allocate that 100K portfolio?
So two things. One, I would say off the bat, the first thing which you said is not a bad way to start, right? Just in general, like for beginners, utilizing and investing in stocks that you regularly utilize their products is a great way to start. It's not the end all be all. It's not always going to work. Some people may love shopping at Walgreens. The stock has just continuously dropped for years, right? It's just not a good one. You may go there. It's your favorite pharmacy, right? You may continuously shop at Starbucks. It hasn't been the best over the last couple of years. Hasn't gone a ton, right? Like, it's a good idea in general. It doesn't always work. Now, in regards to the portfolio, and this throws me back to my wealth management days, it's a trick question because it is different depending on the situation. So who is this portfolio for, right? Is it for you? Is it for someone hypothetical? Is that person married?
Me.
Okay, so it's for you. Do you have a time length on when you're going to need the money?
10 years.
10 years. And do you have to think about anyone else besides you? Do you have to put money away for kids and college and stuff like that? Or is this just, hey, this is just my fuck around money?
This is my fuck around money.
Okay, so a little 10-year portfolio here. I will put some of the stalwarts in there, the companies that I believe are going to have long-term length in this 10-year. I do think great bases right now, and again, not financial advice, but I really do love Tesla and NVIDIA. I think that they're like awesome bases, and I have to throw Google in there. Tesla, NVIDIA, Google, for me, are like little holy trinity when it comes to the tech stocks. I think people put Apple in there as well. I don't know if Apple's going to have the same growth over the next decade as those companies are. I think Tesla would be like my leading pick. I might even put 25% of that portfolio into Tesla, right? I would certainly love to have some Bitcoin in there. We're going high risk, right? I'm going to include some Bitcoin in there, maybe some really far out options on some of these stocks as well. Just like buy them years out to have in there to accentuate this. I think that because you are saying I want a riskier long-term portfolio, you could play around with some small caps. I don't want to go like naming too many specific names, but like a Transmedics, a TMDX, these are companies that are worth a couple $1 billion right now, have major potential over a 5 to 10 year period, right? To actually really get that product out in the market, expand. They're not the other companies I named, like, yeah, they're multi-trillion-dollar companies. Even if they maybe triple over 10 years, like, is that as high risk as you could go? No, you could go for a company that could 100x in that time, right? So I probably have a mix of some of those tech names, those high quality tech names, those Tesla, Googles, NVIDIAs. I'd probably include some Bitcoin, maybe a little bit of those small caps in there. I'm going to say personally, because I'm a fan of them, Celsius. Celsius stock has taken a little bit of a beating the last 2-3 months, but I think that they're well positioned for growth over the next decade with the deal with Pepsi and some other items. So I'm going to continue to bang the drum on them, bang the table, however people want to put it. Gosh, I really just, all the big tech names keep coming to mind. I'm trying to move away from that because I want to put stuff in there that could have more. Oh, Palantir. Put Palantir in there, I would say as well. Palantir, man, they're going to do some crazy things with AI over time. I actually am probably going to be speaking with their CEO not too far off in the future. So yeah, those are a handful of names that I put in there. I think Bitcoin certainly could be in there. Ethereum, right? Those are going to be around for a while as well. I'd have to think through some of the other assets. I honestly think, to be quite honest, most people overthink investing. When I ask my friends, like, hey, what's your portfolio? And they tell me, well, I'm just pretty much just in the S&P 500. And maybe I have like one or two other things. I go, great, you're doing good, right? Like, stop overthinking it and thinking that you have to have a million different names. Even if that high risk portfolio is 7 names, right, and they're concentrated in there, I think you're doing good.
Gav, what are you most excited about for the rest of the year? What gets your blood pumping when you think about the next few months in 2022 all the way till December?
Well,
2024.
Yeah, well, end of this month, I am going to be at the Bitcoin conference. Going to see a bunch of people in person, which I think will be fun. Immediately afterwards, I am flying to Malaysia to record in a TV show. Immediately after that, I am headed to Chicago for a couple weeks to be in person with a business partner. And then in November, I am moving to Puerto Rico. So I do have a busy second half of this year.
What can you tell us about the TV show in Malaysia?
I don't know how much I should share publicly here, but it is going to be a Shark Tank for crypto style show. I'm going to be one of, not the sharks, they're going to be called knights in the show. I'm going to be more of a host type figure. I don't want to share too much at this point, but I'm excited for it.
Why Puerto Rico, other than the obvious reasons?
Yeah, I went and lived in Puerto Rico for a month last year. I really fell in love with it. I think that for me, beautiful people, beautiful culture, beautiful land, beautiful tax system.
Last question, or last 2 questions, Gav. Who wins the election in November? And depending on who wins, are you bullish or bearish markets 2025?
I think the data points towards Trump winning at this point, and it's just hard to imagine Biden even living till the election, let alone winning it. And so I don't really know what's going on over there in the Democratic Party. I do wish that they had run someone else, someone normal, is all I would say. So yeah, I do think Trump will win, and I think that, Trump will be good for the markets, in my opinion. I think that we have to see some of the policies and see what gets enacted. But yes, I do think that it seems like the market kind of goes up regardless in these times, right? Democrat, Republican, we're headed to the upside.
Right. Anything else to share with the audience, Gav? I want to do another one of these with you in the future. I feel like you have a lot of wisdom to share with young entrepreneurs. I think you have a lot of wisdom to share with old entrepreneurs. I think that you've built an amazing brand. The proof is in the pudding, as I said earlier. And I look forward to collaborate with you more in the future with Moby Media. But again, the mic is yours for any concluding thoughts.
I would just tell people to avoid burning bridges in this arena and in this business. It's just never worked out well for anyone that I've seen. I would avoid, publicly saying negative things about other people, publicly roasting people and stuff like that. People are super two-faced, right? I've had people that have written entire posts roasting me and then reached out for my help a month later. And guess what? They didn't get it, right? And so I just want people to understand, keep your relationships positive. don't go spewing garbage. I don't care what you think in your head, right? Once it's on the internet, it's out there forever, and it will come back to bite you. So keep that positive image, right? Be very aware of who you are, what you're saying, and above all else, like, understand that when it comes to business and relationships and social media, each one of them is going to be unique. You might not always get what you want out of it, right? But show up with a happy face on, smile, be open to reconnecting with people. You never know when that opportunity is going to come. You don't have to ever burn bridges. Sometimes you could just walk over them a little bit less.
Beautiful words, Gav. Thank you again for joining, and I look forward to the next one. Take care.
Thank you.